For just a moment here, you guys, I'm going to get away from the usual motorcycle videos that I usually do and talk about a different subject. Now, a lot of people know more and more all the time that something big's going on in the world, something bigger than anything I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I've been here a while, right? Most don't seem to be able to figure out what the solutions are, right? How do we fight this thing? And that's what I'm here to talk about here, okay? Now, a lot of people are listening to the Tuckers and the Russells and the Rogaines and even the Alexes of this world. But I'm here to tell you something, you guys. Those guys don't work for us. They work for them. Their job, what they do is they bring us some truth, usually stuff that's irrelevant to how to beat this thing. And they make us feel hopeless, helpless, and afraid, mostly. That's what they do. They never offer us solutions. And they're there for a reason. They don't work for us. And so what I'm going to talk about here is there's 4 tools that these guys cannot function without. I'm going to tell you what they are. First and foremost is the mainstream media. 1983, we had 40 independent news channels here in the US alone. Now we have 6 globalist billionaires that control all the mainstream worldwide. This is the main thing because that's what controls the public mind. And they have to make us do this stuff to ourselves. So that's the first main thing. Next in line is the banks. If you look into it at all, you'd know that if the banks fell, the whole deck of cards would fall apart. That would put them out of business. The banks stay in business because we take loans. Well, governments do too, but we take loans with interest, and we use the fucking card. Everywhere I go, people use the card. I'm like, why would you use the card instead of cash? Well, they do it because everybody else does. People do what the TV tells them and what everybody else does. For most things in stores and stuff, cash is more convenient, and it doesn't leave a record of where you went or what you bought. You know, think about it, guys. Most of you don't want me knowing where you spent every penny, right? And I'm your friend, right? Let alone putting it on a screen for somebody else. So these are the things that keeps them in business. The next thing in line is the corporations, which are all now connected and centrally controlled. Those were their businesses. That was one of the objects of the Big C thing in 2020, was to put our businesses out of business so they could control everything, right? They can control our needs and our money. And the last one, sorry to tell you, is the military industrial complex. My friends tell me, they're like, Scotty, I'm going off to defend my country. And I tell them, dude, don't you have eyes and a brain? No, you're not. You're being sent to invade somebody else's country, kill their people, take their resources, and bring them back to these rich guys who want to rule the world, who are going to turn on us, who are turning on us. The enemy is domestic. Anybody can see that. The oath that a person takes is all enemies, foreign and domestic. The enemy is domestic. The people of other countries are not our enemies, man. They're the ones that are having the same problem with the same enemies that we are. They're our people. Don't get me wrong, because half my friends are either retired or active duty. I don't hold them. They just haven't thought about this, man. They haven't thought it through. Okay? But you know, the thank you for your service, all that stuff, that's propaganda made. That's propaganda working. When I was a young man, we protested the wars. We didn't cheer on the participants. Now, I wasn't all about spitting on the vets. No bullshit like that. Those are our guys. And they are very brave. It's just that they're being used for the wrong things. They're being used against us now, right? There was a guy, Smedley Butler. He was the most decorated Marine in history at the time of his death. He wrote a book about this. And if you put his name in and you start looking at some of the quotes from his book, he's a guy who knows. You can tell me I don't know, but he did. He's dead by now. These four institutions, right? Mainstream media, which I offer ways to go to uncensored media. I offer, but people refuse to go. They won't go where our people aren't being censored. The banks, the corporations, and the military. Okay, who works for these institutions? We do. Who are their customers? We are. What would happen if we didn't support them? They'd go under. They'd go out of business. You see, the guys who are doing this make up under 1% of the population. They can't do anything with we don't do it to ourselves. People have worked for their own enemies to destroy their own countries, their own countrymen, and their own families since the beginning of time. Everybody's complaining about the flock cameras. Who's putting them up? We do. The 5G, who's putting that up? We do. What if we refuse to do it? There's guys in the sky that are dumping aluminum and barium down on their own countrymen and their own fucking families. What if they refused? They hit Los Angeles a little while back with a DEWS. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. And it falls directly in line with where they're going to build the smart cities. The smart cities are a part of Agenda 21. Now that they're building them, they're calling them 15-minute cities. I got a friend, I was talking to him, he goes, oh, I could go out there and maybe get some work, right? Building his own prison. Do you understand? What if we refuse to do these things? It's the only way that there can ever be a working society is if people absolutely refuse to work for lunatics. We're doing it all. If you're going to the corporation, when you stick your card in that slot, you're doing it. Know that when the shit hits, you're part of it. We've put most of our own businesses out of business. It's hard to even find one of our own business. People go, well, if I go to Home Depot, it's more convenient. I might get a better deal. They have a bigger selection. They don't think, I'll go down to Joe's Hardware, if there still is one. If we didn't put him out of business already, if there still is one, and think, Joe lives on the other side of town with his family. He needs customers. If we moved away and began to frequent our own businesses as much as possible, which I've been doing this since the beginning. This is why I'm always talking about mom and pops. If they would become overrun with customers, they'd be forced to expand as we watch Walmart and Amazon go down. Those people would be in a corner shitting their pants. They'd be going, wow, they're not as stupid as we thought. They figured it out. They're hurting us. Hurt them in the finances, stop financing them, and stop doing their dirty work for them. That's the simple answer. And people tell me I'm only one person, and I tell them there's 8 billion of us in the world, and we're all only one person, brother. More and more people are figuring these things out and doing this stuff. I'm going to tell you what, you guys, the media works so well, and people just don't think, they don't look up above. I have a friend who works for Microsoft. I wouldn't work for Gates if that guy paid me $1 million a day. He intends to destroy us. I know that. I wouldn't work for him at any price. You know what would happen if everybody refused to work for Bill? He'd go out of business real quick. And you know what would happen then? Another guy would step right in to take his place right away. And that guy'd be acting real different because he'd be afraid of what we were going to do to him. So we just don't use our power, and it starts with everybody. So the bottom line, you guys, is if we didn't work for these guys, they could do nothing. We're doing it all. So this is... These are the obvious solutions. If everybody began to pull away all they can from those institutions, those would go down. They'd be shitting their pants. If nobody would have put on the diaper, if nobody would have taken the deal, if nobody would have closed a business, we'd have beat this thing in the first year, maybe two. It'd be over. They wouldn't be on the ropes. They'd be on the floor licking their fucking wounds, and we would be back to having our country again. We're doing it. Look at how you can stop doing it and stop if you want to take any action. Those of you who know what's going on. I did immediately, as much as possible. I still have to go buy something at Walmart once in a while that I can't get anywhere else, or even Amazon. But if I can get it somewhere else, I always will. And people tell me, oh, it's an inconvenience, Scotty. I go to the gas station, I stick my card in there. I go, you're right, it's an inconvenience. I have to walk in twice to pay for my gas. It is an inconvenience. But so is having your country destroyed, right? And your whole life taken from you. That's an inconvenience too. What are you willing to do to People died for this country, for the freedom that we had. They were fighting for a real freedom. And we won't walk into a gas station twice. So I tolerate inconvenience a lot. I look for mom and pop everything. I'm gonna tell you a little story. I'm gonna tell you where I got this shirt. I was at a friend's house in Texas, and I needed some parts for my bike. And you know, Brian there, he's got a place he works on bikes, and I'm working on him. He says, he's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. He says, go on the internet. So I go on the internet, and I look them up, and I find these parts. And I go, screw this. I shut the internet off. I pull up my map. I find the nearest bike shop. It's 20 miles away. So I get on my bike, and I ride down there, and I get to this shop, and it's an old guy in there. He's 80 years old. He's been there 40 years. This guy, Dunk. Some of you might know him, some of you Texans. And I go in and I orders my parts from him. If I pay a little more, I don't care. He's one of my people. I want to keep him in business. You understand? If he's less convenient, I don't care. So I'm you know, united we stand, bro. So anyway, I order my parts, and then I tells him, you know, I could use a jet for my carburetor. And he goes in the back, he gets me one. It's like a used one or something. I said, cool. He says, yeah, you can have that. And so I split. And when my parts come in, he gives me a call. I come back. I get there. I walk in. There's two other old guys sitting in chairs in front of the counter, and they're all drinking coffee. And I'm like, well, you know, I ain't going to get my parts now. So I pulled up a chair, got a cup of coffee, pulled up a chair, and hung out with them until those guys left. And then I talks to Dunk. He gives me my parts, and I pay him. I says to him, you know, I could use an intake manifold. Those things are like $160 now. And he says, there's a box of them in the back. Go get yourself one. So I do. I said, what do you want for that? He says, you can have it, man. He says, you know, there's some carburetor parts back there too, if you need any of that stuff. Well, I didn't at the time. And he gave me this t-shirt. Now, he's the guy who I want to support, not BlackRock. So I may make a video showing you guys how to figure out if these guys are on the stock market, if they're all controlled by the same guys. But one of the things you can do is you can simply ask the internet, is this company on the stock market? I'll tell you a few that are interesting that I've learned about. Is Waffle House is not on the stock market. You know, Chick-fil-A is not on the stock market. It's family owned. Piggly Wiggly is employee owned. So, and there's others too. One of the ways you can start is just by asking if they're on the stock market. And then there's a way, and I may make this a video to show you guys, that you can go and see who are the main shareholders, because they're all the same. On all these big ones, they're all the same. So with that, you guys, I hope you spread this around. Nobody's talking about these things. They make sense to me. If they make sense to you, you can tell me in the comments, or you can give me other ideas that you think. I'm all ears to what we can do as a people, because having under 1% control 8 billion is ridiculous, right? And with that, well, I'll see y'all on the next video.